Jofim, I think Manse Vidi. Sorry, his name was actually Joe. I messed the name up. All right, his name was Joseph, and then he was at this event called Manse Veni. Sorry, I think it's in Finland or some name that I really butchered, so I apologize. So I pull it up here on screen. This was a smaller. Actually, now I want to be curious. You guys are gonna watch with me. It is Finland. Haha. Okay, remember. So it's Finland. Shout out to you guys in your event. So we have John here. He had a Dread Mob list. So of course we're gonna we did have Michael Mann going 6-2 with his Dread Mob list from WCW. But we're gonna do that on a different day, and I'll talk about that more later. But here we have a different archetype of Dread Mob. He did bring, in fact, Ghazghkull Thraka. So I know you guys, if you're new here, you haven't seen too much. Ghazghkull can, in fact, work in Dread Mob. We have a Big Mek. You know, he's the new tech piece. He's been shining more and more, finding his way on lists. People are really starting to make him work. Taking advantage of ability to move through enemy models seems to be a really cool deal. He did stick Smoky Gubbins on here. He also does give the boys and whatever units he's leading the ability to press the button, right? If you force that button, I'm telling you, you're going to kill like 5 boys when you roll. It's really kind of funny slash annoying, but just let it roll, and any of those buffs works for boys. So it's kind of cool on that. He has 3 trusty Lootas, shock attack guns, excuse me. One of those with the Get Funded goggles, 1 basic mech, and 1 war boss. He has a big brick of 20 boys. I'm assuming that's where the big mech goes. That's where the war boss goes. He has 4 independent and small units of Gretchen, 1 unit of commandos, 3 big bricks of Lootas, each of them with 2 custom mega blasters, 2 bodyguards for Ghazghkull Thraka, equipped with a kill saw and a power claw for that diverse profile choice, a Stormboy unit, a battle wagon, a Gorkanaut, and a truck. Yes, absolutely. Now, there's a few options people could take here. Of course, you can always and should always consider putting one of your Luda units into reserve. You have the truck to act as kind of like a mobile bunker for your Luda, and then you can actually disembark from the mech, give them +1 to hit to the guys that are still embarked in it. Put one of your Ludas into reserve, and then you can even decide to put one of your Ludas in your Gorkanaut. I think a lot of the time people forget that your Gorkanaut is an offensive transport, right? It has the capability to position units for further activations in the game, or just keep them safe, knowing that it would take quite a bit to actually pop that easily, right? If you're positioning the Gork defensively because you're not ready for him to go, you know, they're not going to pop they're not going to get to the Lootas easily with just 1 unit, let's say, coming down and getting you know, uppy downy line of sight and popping a truck. Can't do that to your Gork. So your Gork can act as a safe positioning tool for Lootas, as well as putting one in reserve. Can't put them all in reserve because then you might lack the tools to actually deal with people's pressure early, or you might lose board control positioning, so you can actually bring stuff in reserve. You know, these are big units, guys, so just keep in mind that take advantage of all your transport and your transport capability. I think orc players take for granted our transport capabilities here, because a lot of factions wish they had something like orcs do with Titanic models that can transport and stuff like that, right? Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our Waaaghtaktiks dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount, because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. So let's go over his path to victory with this Dread Mob. So right off the bat, he's going into Chaos Space Marines with Pack Bound Zealot. You know, Space Marines with the Pack Bound have great offensive output, but they are a little squishy, right? We have a lot of looters on this list. So we have Cypher. One thing to keep in mind, Cypher gives that like additional AP debuff, so people call it Vect. So he pretty much it's making you spend additional CP if you're within his aura range. This is more effective against Warhorde. The fact that you're playing Dreadmon means you're activating your strats outside of his range the majority of the time. That's nice for us. We have a Chaos Lord, another Chaos Lord and Terminator armor, another Chaos Lord and Terminator and Master of Execution. I have a feeling here we're going to see a lot of Terminators, huh? Cultist, Legionnaires, another unit of Legionnaires, a unit of 5 Terminators, a 10-man unit of Chosen, 2 individual Obliterators. They do have that threatening indirect. Keep that in mind. And then a unit of Bikers, followed by a Forge Fiend, a Hellbrew, and then 2 individual Rhinos. Like I would say, like I was saying when I started, these guys are very devastating offensively. Yet keep in mind, we're talking about a unit that has 30 Lootas, and you do have the units of commandos to keep these guys back. None of these units, from my understanding or awareness, do any kind of infiltration. So you do get kind of the board control on there, so you can get line of fire on there. They are going to have to position them that kind of exploit themselves to pop a wagon, to pop a Gork, which means once your guys are out, they can start kind of throwing back that Dakka down range. So I wouldn't, and I don't see this being necessarily a hard matchup for Dreadmob, because you're able to pick up almost everything on his list with that. Mind you, I'm pretty sure 99% sure Pack Balance Zealot don't have Armor of Contempt, but they do have crazy devastating damage output. So if you don't position your Grotz position, screen yourself well, if you give any of these units up, if your Lootas do get exposed early, they're getting absolutely deleted. Absolutely. Pack Balance Zealot is devastating damage, 61-point win there. Or excuse me, 66-point win. So it was actually his lowest scoring game, right? Because I'm pretty sure he was really hesitant to kind of get in range of all these activations and die too quickly, because that's one of the armies that's like, no, I got all the volume and activations to kill you as much as I want. So he made sure not to feed himself there, just to score just enough to kill. Got to play the long-term game. That's one thing about Dreadmob, guys. You can play the long game with Dreadmob and kind of play at a slower pace, kind of just one-shot people all the time. Next, we go into his second matchup, where he goes into Ultramarines, the Vanguard Space Marines. Got to be familiar with these guys, right? Got to be familiar. We know that these are getting more and more popular. Vanguard is niche to play, very easy to mess up, and orcs kind of, don't hate to see Vanguards, because you're like, well, I'm just going to run up at you unless it's top. Then in that case, that guy's getting away from you and just shooting you off the table. So we have Captain Sicarius, followed by Manius Calgar, the nice bane of everyone's existence for his 4 Feel No Pain bodyguards activations here from these Victrix Honor Guard. You let one of these guys die, and it pops up the 4 Feel No Pain for him. So then you start using him as a tanky juggernaut that runs and does damage. You have he can allow you to fall back, shoot, I believe, in charge. You have Rebute Gilliman for his free strip, CP, and he's cheap now for 25. Not cheap, but cheap enough. Uriel Ventress, Apothecary Biologus with Blade Driven Jeep, Lieutenant with Combi Bolter. Then we have a 5-man unit of assault, a big brick Centurion Devastators. These guys are absolutely devastating. These guys are no doubt one-shotting your battle wagon. They can come off the battlefield edge, give themselves additional AP, and I think +1 to hit as well. You do get saves. What up, Jim Jones? Yeah, you get a 5-up. Whoa, thanks for the green shirt. Yeah, I love green's best. But these guys can absolutely hammer a battle wagon quite reliably off. There is a stream game where I think it was Michael Mann himself with his Bully Boys list. He let his guy sit out in the open. His battle wagon was exposed. These guys came off the battlefield edge, picked him up quite reliably. He was like, oh, I should definitely not have done that. Let him get that line of sight so easily. Then he has an Eradicator unit to go alongside that. Infiltrators, scouts, 2 of those units of scouts, and then 2 suppressor squads. So suppressor squads are funny because they give your unit -1 to hit. As well as their 3-man units, their jetpack, very much for scoring. But when they do get to go off, they are debuffing you. It does work, I believe, until the next phase, until the next turn, I believe, or something. When I read it last time, it's been a while. And so it does affect your melee as well. It's not simply a -1 to shooting. You would think because of suppression, it would be only shooting. Nope. It counts for -1 to hit in combat too. I read it not too long ago. Even it's been a while, but long ago as in within like a year. So yeah, this list definitely super toolsy. Definitely can get the initiative on you as an orc player. You do appreciate the fact that you have the ability to shoot back at these guys because they have reactionary moves and they have debuffs as well. Easier said than done. This is one of those things where having the mission and stuff, giving more context would be a better way to lay that out. Just know that that list is definitely devastating. You pop the Gork, pop the wagon, but you do have tools to really pick up everything else in response. It does take a very high level player to pull that kind of Vanguard attachment kind of list off. So we can see here, he got an 82-point win there. Then we go into his third matchup, which is a Genestealer cultist, host of Ascension. Haha, we like that, right? So Genestealer is making their way on the market, boys. Time to get some loot, right? Start beating them boys up, taking the loot from these guys. They're the little buggy boys, which means become familiar with them to a certain degree if you're attending like a GT, I would say. So we have Benefit. Speaking of get familiar with, I don't know who the heck this guy is. Primus, another Primus, and then a Reductus Saboteur, followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units of hand flamer acolyte hybrids, followed by 1, 2, 3 big 20-man units of neophyte hybrid bricks, a Goliath truck, followed by 3 5-man units of Abrams. These guys are respectively punchy, respectively durable with their feel no pains. They don't really get good armor saves, so our AP actually does come into play. If these guys are on an objective, Lootas are still absolutely erasing them without you worrying about it. If they're not an objective, they do have a good chance to kind of just withhold that damage. Also, if you put like a Gork into them, which they tend to have, you're obviously picking them up with your 6 damage crumps. We do have 2 Achilles Ridge Runners. These guys give like additional AP, I believe, when they pick a target to shoot. Genestealers aren't just really good at popping wagons and corks at range, so they do have to kind of let you interact and start chewing through stuff. And then 3 units of Pure Strain Genestealers. This is like the initiative where they kind of want to run you down. They don't have the Pure Strain, it looks like, right? They don't have the Pure Strain, so they're not going to really devastate you. They are going to try to pin you in, though, right? And then when you pick these Genestealer Pure Strain Genestealers up, they're going to respawn, so you're going to have to be aware of that. But picking them up, you have commandos are keeping them off you. So like I said, your battle wagons can go bully. If you are going to Genestealers and they don't have the innate kind of firepower that I'm not really seeing on this list, they do have some rock grinders, and they do have I think there's like the lasma cutter driller kind of las cannon kind of dudes, but not really popular where they're at now. They're not necessarily good at destroying wagons and gorks in a timely manner, so kind of be aggressive with them, and definitely beat the crap out of them, because you have to push them off you so that when they come back to life on the table, they're not in the mid table. It takes them a while to get kind of back there. Other than that, Genestealers are making their way up, so shout out to them. Then game 4, we have wait hold on. Go back to that. We were gonna say about Genestealers. My boy Jank, what's up, Jank? One of the mods. He says Beneficius attaches to the battle line to give their ranged weapons lethal. It also has a psychic cannon for those own ranged attacks. Can't attach to the Primus icon of the Magus. All right, thanks for that. Oh, I appreciate it. Shout out to the mod. Shout out to the mods. So that's what he does. Thanks, because I didn't know that. All right, so game 4, we go into the aeldari battle host. I always say that aeldari, for the most part, aren't like a hard match for orcs, or a bad match. Not easy. So we have the Artark Wayleaper with the Phoenix, get back up. Avatar of Cain, Death Jester with Fey Messages, and then a Farseer. We have 2 units of Corsair Void Reapers. Yeah, Reavers, sorry, excuse me. Guardian Defender, nice basic battle line unit. 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners, 1 Striking Scorpion unit, 2 small swooping hawk units, followed by 2 warwalkers, and then a big old dart wraith knight, big old fat wraith knight. Wraith Knights don't really seem to be where it's at right now, right? Don't really seem to be where it's at. And when you have big shells for bigger gets, and you really have just one target you care about, it does help with these Warwalkers a little, because they do have, like, I think an innate -1 to wound if you're greater strength than them, and they'll heal like 9 or 10. So they're not that easy to kill, but we have the volume to kind of get through stuff like that. Other than that, how does Dreadbomb necessarily do into it? It's one of those things that they don't really kill a 20-man unit of Boyz too easily in activation. They do have to put certain Bright Lances and this Wraith Knight into the battle wagon to pop it. But if you can prolong that, try to get the initiative on the Wraith Knight, or even use your wagon as, bait. Let him come out. He goes for your wagon. You respond with your Gork and your Lootas. And then in the response, your Big Mek can run up the table with his boys, run through screens, really get stuck in their deployment, push them back. So yeah, he's definitely playing with flavor, is a good way to put it, right? He's playing with flavor. But people can win with flavor, man. People can win with flavor. Then we go into this 5th game, where we have a plague company of Death Guard. So of course the orcs bullies, right? We know that for the most part, Death Guard are giving us a little run for our money sometimes. So we have, can you guys see that on screen, or is that too far zoomed in? We have a Typhus, Biologic Putrefier, Foul Blightspawn, and then 2 Malignant Plague Casters. So it looks like he's gonna have first and lethal 5+ criticals here. So he has 2 10-man units of Plague Marines, followed by 1 10-man unit of Cultists, a 6-man unit of Death, followed by a 3-man unit of Death Shroud, 2 floated bloat drones with spitters, a Mephitic Blight Hauler, 2 Rhinos, a Nurgling, 2 Brigands, and a Carnivore. I don't think these are bad allies necessarily. They do supplement some of the weaknesses that Death Guard has for their, lack of long range shooting and slow positioning. But these don't really help us. Sorry, these tools don't help them against. We would hate to see more Terminators, for example, right? These are pretty solid though. They're pretty solid because brigands have good volume. They have their melted lance guns, so they can help with wagons if they do. I'm just saying we would hate to see even more Death Guard type units. Like in our case as orcs, some people could argue that you would dislike seeing more Tarion more, for example, right? Because we know we can deal with carnivores and brigands. We don't necessarily hate the knight matchup all the time, depending on how you design your list, of course, right? This is a general statement. Therefore, I've found personally that I do have a little bit more difficulty if I'm dealing with Death Guard that have even more redundancy in Death Guard tools. Not necessarily sure if it's Morty, right? Not necessarily sure if my answer is Morty here. But that being said, that's how you kind of would try to work around it if you could, because he doesn't also have a bunch of Nurglings, right? And we're not trying to get stuck into them and combat them. Really, we're trying to duke it out and shoot them, which is what they're weak at. Yet what they're trying to counter us with our strength against them right now is War Dog Brigands, which we have the tools to deal with them because we're playing Dread Mob. So that doesn't play against us as we're playing Dread Mob, which is why people look at Dread Mob and they go, man, we don't have to deal with, the Vector, or we don't have to deal with Death Guard necessarily as much Contagion Aura or the stacking -2 to hit, trying to run into their defensive buffs. Of course, you can get those from the Dress Shroud because it doesn't look like he also doesn't have the. Oh wait, no, the Bladecaster is that right? Oh, okay. Plaguecaster is for So one thing is yes, that's true about Gem Jones with the Plaguecaster. He does roll mortal wounds, but what I was trying to point out is that they don't have the Terminator Sorcerer because he reduces Terminators for those Death Shroud, which can kind of stack that durability on there. So how looking at this list, even though Death Guard is a hard matchup for that, that's where you find some of the holes and weaknesses in that, right? Lootas, Plague Marines normally with their brick of fight first, critical 5+s, does good into Boyz. It does get into all these different orc units that want to run up and punch them. But in response, something like Lootas don't really care about this. Even if you're -1 to hit them, hey, I'm re-rolling whatever, and then my shock attack gun is normally my real value unit, so it's just chewing straight through you. -4 AP. One of them's ignoring cover, and it's blast. You're just getting wrecked. So, and don't forget about Typhus. Typhus is probably who's sticking with that 6-man unit. He throws out mortal wounds as well. He's very good high value. But good shout out by that for being able to take out Death Guard as the final unit with a 77-point win with his Dread Mob list. Of course, you do love the fact that you have a Gorkanaut in that kind of matchup because then you can bully the Baby Knights, you can bully the Death Shrouds and hit them with the Strength 6 punch. You do love the Battle Wagon for its ability to throw those 20 boys up the table right away and pressure and flip a primary objective. So shout out to you for taking over Dread Mob and taking them to an undefeated 5-0 war for the Dread Mob and the Great WAAAGH. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!